Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. The story of Russia's occupation of Crimea remains one of the most debated geopolitical moves in modern history, and today we are going to explore the true reasons behind it. Many narratives have been presented over the years, but understanding why Crimea was taken requires breaking it down much like a detailed review. We must consider the exterior situation, the internal motives, the performance of the strategy, the safety features Russia believed it was securing, the unique advantages of Crimea, the overall cost, and then bring it all together in a final conclusion. On the exterior, Crimea is more than just a peninsula. It is a region with immense geographic and strategic importance. Situated on the northern coast of the Black Sea, Crimea commands a location that has been fought over for centuries. For Russia, it offers access to warm water ports, something the country historically lacks due to its northern geography and icy seas. The port of Sevastopol has long been home to the Russian Black Sea Fleet, giving Moscow naval reach into the Mediterranean and beyond. Without Crimea, Russia would risk losing a cornerstone of its maritime presence, especially as Ukraine began to lean more toward the west. The external appearance to the world was that Russia made a bold and illegal territorial grab, but from Moscow's perspective, securing this coastline was essential for survival as a great power. Looking deeper inside, the interior motives give us more context. Russia perceived Ukraine's shift toward NATO and the European Union as a direct challenge to its influence and security. To the Kremlin, Ukraine's independence was acceptable only if it remained within Russia's sphere of influence. The Euromaidan revolution in 2014, which toppled a pro-Russian president and brought in a government seeking closer ties with Europe, was seen as an existential threat. Crimea had a majority ethnic Russian population, and many residents still felt strong cultural and historical ties to Moscow. By moving quickly to take control, Russia played on these sentiments and justified its actions as protecting Russian people. Internally, it also served to stir national pride and strengthen the narrative of reclaiming historically Russian land. The internal reasoning may have been compact, but it carried enormous weight in motivating the Kremlin's decision. When we look at performance, Russia's actions in Crimea were swift, precise, and left the world stunned. The operation was carried out with extraordinary efficiency. Within days, heavily armed soldiers in unmarked uniforms, often called Little Green Men, appeared across Crimea. They seized government buildings, took control of airports, and blocked Ukrainian military bases. Communication networks were disrupted, and before Ukraine or the international community could respond, the situation on the ground had completely changed. A referendum was organized under heavy Russian presence, and it declared overwhelming support for joining Russia. While the legitimacy of that vote remains widely disputed, the performance of the operation from a military and political standpoint was strikingly successful. Russia managed to redraw borders without firing large-scale battles, showing its ability to use speed and confusion as powerful weapons. Turning to safety features, Russia saw the annexation as securing both physical and political protection. Militarily, holding Crimea meant safeguarding its naval fleet in Sevastopol, ensuring that NATO could not expand its presence into this vital region. It created a buffer zone, reducing the likelihood of Western military infrastructure directly threatening Russia's southern flank. Politically, the move was framed domestically as a defensive act of protecting Russian citizens and history. This provided the leadership in Moscow with a powerful narrative that boosted Vladimir Putin's popularity at home. At a time when protests and opposition were growing, Crimea became a rallying point, presenting Russia as standing tall against Western pressure. In this sense, the safety features were not just about defense against outside threats but also about insulating the government against internal dissent. Exploring Crimea's unique selling points gives even more clarity. Beyond the obvious military significance, Crimea is rich in resources and cultural value. The Black Sea is believed to have untapped oil and gas reserves offshore, making it a valuable energy asset. The peninsula's climate and natural beauty have long made it a destination for tourism, and its cultural landmarks hold symbolic significance in Russian history. From the perspective of Russia's leadership, regaining Crimea was not just about securing a naval port but also about acquiring a region with economic potential and cultural prestige. In the eyes of the Russian public, Crimea was portrayed as a jewel unjustly given away during the Soviet Union's collapse and now finally restored. This narrative turned Crimea into more than just territory. It became a symbol of Russia's resurgence as a global power. However, every action carries a price, and the cost of occupying Crimea has been immense. Internationally, Russia faced widespread condemnation and sanctions from the United States, the European Union, and many other countries. These sanctions targeted banks, businesses, and individuals, limiting Russia's access to global markets and foreign investment. The Russian economy, already vulnerable, suffered under these restrictions. Billions of dollars had to be poured into developing Crimea's infrastructure, including the construction of the massive Crimean Bridge to connect the peninsula to mainland Russia. Integrating Crimea also required ongoing subsidies, as the region's economy struggled under isolation. Beyond financial costs, Russia's relations with the West deteriorated drastically, leading to a new era of geopolitical tension reminiscent of the Cold War. The annexation also triggered the war in eastern Ukraine, further draining resources and escalating conflict. In this way, the price of taking Crimea went far beyond money. It reshaped Russia's place in the world and locked it into confrontation with the West. When we put all these factors together, the conclusion becomes clearer. The true reason Russia occupied Crimea cannot be explained by just one motivation. It was a blend of strategic necessity, cultural identity, and political survival. The exterior geography made Crimea too valuable to let go, the interior motives tied it to Russian pride and security concerns, the performance of the operation showed Russia's ability to act decisively, the safety features gave Moscow a sense of protection, and the unique selling points added both practical and symbolic value. The price was high, but the Kremlin believed the benefits outweighed the costs. To this day, Crimea remains under Russian control, and the conflict it sparked continues to define the balance of power in Eastern Europe. Understanding these layers helps us see why this event was not just a territorial dispute but a turning point in global politics, revealing how history, strategy, and identity collided on the shores of the Black Sea.